Okay. I don't know if this is showing up on the stream recording. If it is, yay. If it isn't, oh well. Hi. So, Oh, actually I need to switch that over. Donne? My name is Sage Blake. I'm a wanderer, storyteller, artist immature, and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Put simply, I've been running through a bunch of different scripts as to how to start today, and I guess the quickest one I can start up with is, I know I'm not a social person, but I'm still gonna try to make this work. I picked the title of the stream specifically because I figure it's relevant at this point. I'm not great when it comes to being social, and across the board, I sometimes see myself as being agoraphobic. Defined agoraphobia is a fear of social situations and crowded places. And for years, I've been trying to break that mold. I'm not good at it. I put simply, anytime I have an opportunity when I want to engage in a social situation, I freeze up, I break, and I lose my opportunity. I don't expect anyone to drop by today, especially since Ferality Luma is going on and people are going to be going to that as opposed to a tiny stream like this. But I'm still gonna try. Well, to that end, I figure drop into a world I know just to give myself a bit of a social warm-up. Not to mention, this is also serves a secondary purpose, just to spin today into a bit more of a social day than usual. And at that, I full-on don't know how or even if I'll be able to continue being in VR for the entirety of today. Likely I won't be able to, but I'm gonna try it anyway. I also don't know how this is, or if this is picking up well on the thinger. I'm hoping it is, but we'll see. So with that out of the way, this is VR Chat. It's a thing where people mess around, talk, and just generally enjoy themselves, and I figure as a social warm-up, just mess around with Tierland. This is a world created by a fan of Mega G-Wolfs, if I remember correctly, and the big shtick of it is tier lists. And so I figure, as a bit of a warm-up, go through a few different categories, just talk about shit. Not just about the categories that we're rating, but also just general. So for our first one, it is rating various Sonic games, because why not? Furry. Sonic Adventure 2, Masterpiece. It's a game I know very well. Mike sounds good. Want to keep VRing after doing some VR. I want to try. I make no guarantees, Tay. Also, I hope you're doing well. Because, again, I'm still a little bit sickly with the COVID. It seems to be a minor case, but... well, full on, I don't know what my durability is going to be for VR. I'm going to try, but I make no promises, as usual. But yeah, again, hope you're doing well. Right, Sonic Adventure 2, grew up with the game, it's very, very fun. I do get it's a bit glitchy in places, it does have its problematic moments, but I still found myself going back to it, and the Chow Garden. I probably should clarify on this one. Sonic Adventure 2 was like the second or the third ever Sonic game I ever played. The Chow Garden. I spent way too much time in the fucking Chow Garden to the point that I had to get banned from playing the game entirely because I got too attached to the Chow. Kid me. That's all I have to say. I'm trying to look after myself, Tay. I'm making sure to drink plenty of water. I've got like a full cup near me. I will fill it up again periodically throughout the stream. I will drink. I promise you that. Never played a Sonic game that wasn't in race cars. Oh, you might be interested if you like platformers, cause there is a lot. Like, there's a whole divide between 2D and 3D. Some people say the 2D is better, the 3D is better, etc., etc. I just view it as which one's fun to play. That'd be games for you. Also true. Hello, Wolf. Hope you're doing well. I can definitively say Sonic Lost World sucks. And if you like the game, I don't know how. Like, in a Sonic game, you're meant to be going fast. You're meant to be playing with momentum a lot. And in Lost World, you only kinda do that. Sure, there's a whole parkour gimmick where you can, like, run up and around walls, but it doesn't save the game. It doesn't even make the game because it's so slow in the first place. You have a dedicated run button. It feels more like a Mario game than a Sonic game, specifically because it's slower paced, specifically because the worlds aren't all that interesting, the music isn't all that interesting, and by and large, what defines a Sonic game is its music. If the music's C-list, then it's practically not a Sonic game. No one says 3D is better. Thanks for the follow, Wolf! Welcome to Synapse. We host all types of wanderers here, yourself included. You'd be surprised, Tay. Some people do say that the 3D Sonic games are better than the 2D ones. They're blind. That's all I have to say on that. Fuck! You're already gonna be giving me a divisive one? Third from the rip? Sonic Rush Adventure. Sonic Rush Adventure, that's all I have to say. This is a divisive Sonic game, actually. Released on Nintendo DS as a sequel to Sonic Rush, it was, I think, on the tail end of the DS's life cycle. It is very much a game defined by the boost gameplay, where it's like, oh hey, 2D levels, you rush through it, much like a classic Sonic game, but you have a boost button where you could tear through enemies. Rush Adventure also adds a whole bunch of side modes and mandatory progress locked behind using water vehicles, so hovercrafts, battleships, etc., etc. And it's turret-style gameplay, kind of. I kinda liked it, but I also recognize that this type of gameplay isn't for everyone. Some people actually hate it, specifically because it's monotonous in some ways. But I kinda liked the whole idea of playing a Sonic game where you get to explore a massive world. And Rush Adventure is kind of a prototype for that. It's not a bad DS game, honestly. I actually do like it more than Sonic Rush. I would recommend it. It's got some pretty good music, pretty good boss fights. They're fairly long and meaty too, and I'm weird. I like boss fights in Sonic games, specifically because, in some cases at least, especially with the boost gameplay, they're reflex tests, they're pattern recognition, and they're generally just fun to play. What's Sonic? A miserable pile of all over the place. Let's go. I'd call it an A game. Oh boy. Sonic Chaos. Originally released on Game Gear, Sonic Chaos was a bit of a swing title, if I remember correctly. A place to eat out? Oh, don't get me started. Sonic fast food is trash. I had it once, the burger. Why is it sweet? I mean, I get it, it's Southern cuisine, but Southern doesn't mean sweet. There has to be a richness to the flavor. Sweet is not that. Don't have Sonic there. Good! Honestly, good! A burger is not meant to be sweet! Although, to be honest, I hear that most people go to Sonic in the first place for, like, milkshakes and whatnot, which... It's a burger chain. Why is the main attraction, aka the burger, not what you go for? I feel like it misses the purpose. No, here's the thing. I don't think it's a brioche bun burger. I think it was actually the meat itself that was sweet. Like, brioche can work for a burger, just... I don't know how to explain it. Just, It was so obnoxiously sweet that it just doesn't fit. Sonic Chaos. 2D game is a 2D game, introduced a few gimmicks like, if I remember correctly, it was one of the first to introduce Tails of all things, of all characters. The levels are fairly easy. There are 5 different special stages, and they would be dedicated bouts, I believe, with Knack the Weasel / Fang the Sniper. It's not bad, but it's a fairly forgettable 2D Sonic game. Hell, I've actually still found people who don't exactly realize that this was an actual game that existed. I'd put it at C-list, honestly. It's not great, but it's not terrible. Just forgettable. This, on the other hand, is just terrible. Sonic 4. When Animal is a Sniper, I don't know. I would think, like, some type of insect, but, I don't know Sega. Especially Sega in the 90s. But anyway, Sonic 4 sucks. The momentum is trash, the game is very short, it's only like 4 worlds, maybe even 5, of 2 to 3 levels apiece. They're not all that interesting, they're not all that engaging. I remember back when this was first announced, people went gaga over this, claiming, yes, it's finally returned to normal formula. There's no momentum. There's barely any speed. The boss fights are cookie cutter, practically ripped out of the original Sonic games. The special stages. My god, the special stages. They tacked on motion controls to Sonic 1 special stages. You know, the one with the the giant levels that, like, rotated on their own, and you had to, like, break a bunch of diamonds to get to the Chaos Emeralds. It sucked. It was trash. People hate the Sonic 1 special stages. This game is trash. You can't convince me that it's any semblance of good. Down to the bottom you go, and we don't talk about anymore. The only correct answer is an aye. Aye. Great for speedrunning. Ugh, no, it is terrible. Sonic 4 is terrible for speedrunning. Specifically because there's no fucking momentum. You can walk up a 90-degree wall. But enough ranting. Let's get to ranting. 06. 06 is trash, but it did get some things right. But it also got a whole lot of things wrong. The less we talk about human kissing, the better. The plot was kind of bad. The character designs were kind of bad. But the stages were fun. They had interesting gimmicks. I like Silver, just across the board. Shadow, I feel like, could have had a bit more spice in his gameplay. Sonic was very slow. Actually, all the characters were fairly slow in this game. The momentum was just off. That's it. I do like the idea of the power-up system, where, like, you can use the rings and stages to power yourself up. It's a nice extension from Sonic Adventure 1, Sonic Adventure 2, try to refine that formula. It's very much a game that you play to laugh at, not to enjoy. Unless your enjoyment is laughing at a game, in which case, go for it. I recognize it's terrible. But specifically because it's a game that you play just to see how much you can break it, and that by itself is fun, see. It's weirdly beloved and I don't understand it. Part of that is, like, it was part of a whole dynamic shift within Sega. It was being hyped up as, like, a generational title, an anniversary title. It was terrible, but there is a cult following for it, and there's actually also a bunch of people have gotten together to try and essentially fix the game. And they're doing a marvelous job at it. If at any point you want to take away anything from this whole tier list thing, look up the Sonic 06 fan project. It is a very good reconstruction and fix of the original game. So much so that it actually makes it worthwhile to play. Colors. And specifically the DS version. I've never played the DS version. But from what I've seen, it's essentially boost formula a la Rush Adventure. That by itself isn't a bad thing. The most I've played of Sonic Colors is like one level in Generations, which used some of its concepts. Well, Generations 3DS, I should be saying. It's not bad, but I also can't render a judgment on this game. As a result, the highest I can put it is B, specifically because I haven't played it. Generations, on the other hand, I have played, both versions. It's fairly forgettable, honestly. And this one's going to bother people. Because people say that Sonic Generations is a good game, but I hate all the fan service. There aren't enough boss fights. There isn't enough to do. It's a game you can clear in 4 hours. By comparison, Rush Adventure will easily take you 12, 16. Sonic Adventure 2, the same. There's just not enough meat within Sonic Generations for it to be worthwhile for me. I need something more. I need something better. Not to mention, it also started the trend of classic Sonic being jammed into everything because pandering fan service and ugh. Never played Sonic Pocket Adventure, but I have heard that the Neo Geo was plagued by screen crunch because it was a vertical screen, if I remember correctly. I'm not sure how I'd rate this. I guess in C, because some people do kind of like this one. But I've never played it, so I can't really render a good judgment. The other Sonic Generations. So, in that case, one of these is... Okay. Take that off. Because one of these is the 3DS version. I'm assuming this one. And the 3DS version is trash. The controls are stiff and awkward, the stages that they selected in the first place aren't all that engaging and interesting. It was mostly a retread of the console version, and not a great one, especially since partway through they gave classic Sonic homing attack, which effectively makes him pretty much play the same way as modern Sonic, only without a boost. Not to mention, Generations 3DS has gotten my hate boner, because one of the last levels of the game is the Sonic Colors world, and with modern Sonic, there's a whole section with rail switching and dodging falling meteors, and as an adult, I have a hard time with that stage. I don't know what it is about it, but I can never seem to dodge the last string of meteors, and it always seems to kill me, and I burn like 5 continues every time I play that fucking version. Never again. The console one, I'd rather play again, but it's still forgettable. I'm putting it in C. Because if I were to go back to any version of Sonic Generations, it would be the console version, and even then, I wouldn't really go back to it. Oh wow, we're getting really divisive now. Sonic Advance 3. Okay, I grew up playing all 3 Sonic Advance titles. Sonic Advance 3, I remember being one of the most stop and go. The company that was responsible for the Sonic Advance series, and at that, some of the Sonic Rush games, Dimps. They were also responsible for Sonic 4, which is why that one is kinda trash. The momentum in Sonic Advance is pretty good, the stages feel nice. Sonic Advance 3 is an exception. It's very much stop-and-go heavy. The boss fights, I actually think, are the best out of all the Sonic Advance games. But especially in the latter half of the game, it feels very disjointed and not Sonic-like, and very Sonic 1. And that's not a good thing for it. Finding all the Chow for the special stages was fun and interesting. And I thought the special stages themselves are also pretty cool too. Like, they're on-rails things where you're on the wings of the tornado and you have to collect rings and avoid mines, and it's actually pretty cool and interesting. Kind of like the Sonic 3D Blast special stages, only with some extra up and down in them. And at that, I really like the tag system with this game. Like, one of the big draws to it is you picked a team, essentially. A duo. you would pick 2 characters out of a total of 5, Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Cream, Amy, and depending on who your second character was, you would get a different tag action. So for example, with Cream, you would get a double jump, and you would convert Cream's Chow into your attack option for a little bit. If you chose Amy, you would get a hammer attack. She would catapult you high into the air. If you chose Sonic, you chose the wrong answer, because having Sonic as your partner is the absolute worst thing that you could do, because all he does is give you a speed boost whenever you need it, and you don't need a speed boost whenever you need it, because... Okay, enough ranting. Yes, Alex, we're ranting about Sonic games. Also, hello, hope you're doing well. Sonic Advance 3, I kinda like it, but I also recognize it's kinda bad, but I do like the Tiny Chow Garden. C. Sonic Adventure. I grew up playing the GameCube version, which is not the good version of Sonic Adventure. Supposedly, if you want to play this game, you play the Dreamcast original, because there's a lot less bugs to contend with, the physics are a little bit better, supposedly. But then again, there's a mod for the Steam version, if I remember correctly, that fixes a lot of the issues. It brings back a lot of the original Dreamcast textures and voice syncing and what have you, and it kind of patches over that. In terms of a game, it's okay. People say that Gamma's stages are absolute trash. I love them. Big is irredeemable trash. You can't convince me otherwise. You can't convince me that Big's part of the game is necessary to the plot. You can't convince me that fishing is fun in Sonic Adventure. Fishing can be fun in games, not this game. I still think Sonic Adventure 2 is better, but I still recognize that this one's a good game. Nonic and Suckles. There's no debate. It's a good game. I've only played the GameCube DX version. Same, actually. So that's effectively what I'm basing my everything off of. The DX version, the emulations that you could get for all the emblems in there, they're pretty good. They're fun. It was actually how I first got to experience, like, Sonic Chaos and a few other types of Sonic games, too. Well, classic ones. Oh. So apparently they're splitting off Episode Metal and Baseline Sonic 4. There's no difference. Episode Metal was an extra story, essentially, that you got by having Sonic 4 Episode 2 on the same console that you had Sonic 4 Episode 1, if I remember correctly. There's no fucking point to play either of them. Don't bother. Metal Sonic's only difference is maybe he moves a little bit faster, and that's it. There's not much of a difference. Knuckles and Knuckles with Knuckles featuring Knuckles. Honestly, like, I kind of like the pressure of the time limit within Sonic Adventure's Gamma stages. It's pretty fun, actually. Kind of reminds me of, like, a shooting gallery game, and those are actually kind of fun for me. Speaking of shooting gallery games, damn, not here. Shadow the Hedgehog. I have nightmare stories about this game. So, Shadow the Hedgehog. What if we took Sonic Adventure 2, specifically just Shadow, and gave him a gun? It works better than you think it does, actually. It was kind of fun using all the different guns and weapons in the game, and every time you cleared certain boss fights, you would get extra special weapons from the Shadow Crates. And they ranged from a one-shot rifle to a vacuum gun to a healing gun. And they were kind of interesting. Not to mention, the multiplayer in Shadow the Hedgehog, to die for. It's actually really, really fun. I just wish that there were more stages to play. And that, for the characters actually weren't just, oh hey, it's Shadow, but with a mandatory gun. What I don't like about this game? How you get from stage to stage. There's a whole gimmick with hero side, dark side, neutral side, and depending on how you clear stages, you get certain endings and even boss fights and even stages, period. I remember having such a terrible time getting to some of the stages because some of the requisites are absolute fucking trash. I.e., take out an objective with a specified time limit, or disable a bunch of bombs, and unless you do so, then the entire stage blows up and you die. Not to mention, it's also a bit of a pain in the ass getting the final story. You need to clear the game, essentially, well, quote-unquote clear the game, about 6 to 12 times, because you need to have seen every single stage in the game, and fought at least one of the 2 bosses at the end of each last level of the game. I think you might have actually had to beat all the bosses. And the extra story that you get is fairly short. It's 1 long level, 1 boss fight with Super Shadow. It's fun. I do like this game, and this is the weird part. I would actually say this is a good game. I'm not sure if I put it above Sonic... You know what? I think I will put it... No. I'll put it on par with Sonic Adventure, and that's going to get people mad at me. Sonic Blast. Sonic Blast. So, back when there was a whole boom of games doing rotoscopy or whatever it is, essentially taking 3D images and rendering them as 2D sprites, this game kinda happened. Most people don't even recognize that this game exists. I played it, partially because I got curious at one point, and one of the boss fights that you could do in Sonic Gems Collection was the final boss of Sonic Blast. So I have played through this game. I've also played through that final boss. It's kinda bad. Honestly, this is a game that you wouldn't be faulted for not remembering, and it's not a great game. You could play as Sonic or Knuckles in the game. Wasn't too much of a difference. The momentum just feels off. The sprites are far too big for Sonic and Knuckles, to the point that, in some cases, you could struggle with platforming because they're so big and there's a whole bunch of screen crunch with it being Game Gear. You're with me on that? Good. Okay, I'm actually somewhat vindicated on my opinions of Shadow the Hedgehog. I'll take it. Sonic 4 2. Why did we get Sonic 4 Episode 2? It's at least partially redeemable because supposedly the multiplayer is okay, the stages are better, the boss fights are better. It's still plagued by the fact that it's Sonic 4 though. And Sonic 4 has no right to exist. That's it. I've never played it, by the way. Will I be excommunicated for saying that Sonic and the Secret Rings is a decent game? I think I will be. Like Shadow 6... Yeah, honestly, there is some good in it. There is some good in those 2 games. In Sonic 06's case, it's mostly because it's a game to make fun of as opposed to enjoy, but that's still fine in my books. Shadow, on the other hand, is actually pretty fun to... Shadow the Hedgehog is actually pretty fun to play, and you can't convince me otherwise. But Sonic and the Secret Rings. So, back when the Wii was first announced and released and whatnot, Sega said that they were working on a spin-off Sonic game, and what they produced was the Storybook series, which, well, quote-unquote series. There's only like 2 games in the series, this and the Black Knight. I would say, if you're going to play a Sonic Storybook game, play Black Knight. Secret Rings is kind of forgettable. The stages themselves are on-rails type things. You're automatically moving at all points in the game, and with this one at least, you could tilt... You're meant to be playing with it with the Wii Remote tilted sideways. You tilt the Wii Remote, and you move to the left or to the right. You can flick it up to jump, flick it down while you're in the air for a homing attack. The stages are interesting, the gameplay is okay, but it's still a forgettable game. The party mode, on the other hand, gets its own category, I feel like. Like, if I were to rate Secret Rings on the whole, it would be D tier. But the party mode in this game is practically Mario Party, and a little more. and it actually saves some of the game. I would actually recommend playing the party mode. It is effectively Mario Party. Well, it's effectively Mario Party 8, but with Sonic, and that's actually really fun. I feel like we're on the same wavelength of Sonic games. Just, Sonic and the Black Knight is kind of the reverse of Sonic and the Secret Rings. You play Sonic and the Black Knight for its gameplay, not for its side mode, because the side mode is like this battle mode, and it kind of sucks. It's not that interesting. You tear through it in like 15 minutes, and you're better off playing the single player. The stages and the music are just a lot better. You still have to deal with the on-rails issue with Sonic and the Secret Rings, but there's a lot more customizability, there's a lot more interesting gameplay, there are multiple characters even. Sonic Rush. I would say it's an A-tier game, but if I can, I would like to put Rush Adventure a little bit higher than it. Because honestly, Sonic Rush Adventure is Sonic Rush, but with a little more. And at least for me, that little more is worthwhile. Sonic Rush is still fine to play. It's still interesting to play. It introduces us to Blaze in the first place, and Blaze was honestly a good addition to the world, to Sonic's world. Essentially, think alternate world Sonic, only fire-based instead of wind-based, and royalty because why not? She's very much a loner, she's very much a defrosting ice queen, and it was an interesting way of writing her character and her dynamic, and I really like the boss fights in Sonic Rush, especially like the boss fight between Sonic and Blaze. That boss fight is perfect, because it actually feels like a back and forth duel, and it gets all that much better at the last hit that you deal to the boss, which is essentially a speed duel. That's the one miss, I guess, on that boss fight, because you will wear your thumbs out fast by mashing the buttons, but it's still fun. Sonic Rush Adventure is Sonic Rush, but with more Yahar Mimady. Pretty much. That even extends to the special stages, because in Sonic Rush, the special stage is half-pipes. Fuck half-pipes. But at least Sonic Rush's half-pipes are tolerable in that, one, it's touchscreen-based, and two, they're easy. Rush Adventure gets the more interesting special stages because they're all races against the green robot on the title there. His name is Johnny. And they're all races. Essentially, it's a head-to-head race between you and this robot for the Chaos Emeralds. And you also have to find the Chaos Emeralds on the world map as well, which I feel like is more interesting. Had to choose the special stages in Rush. Honestly, yeah, they do get a little too spammy with some of the traps and whatnot, but I would still take that half-pipe. I would still take Sonic Rush half-pipe over Sonic 2 half-pipe any day. Speaking of Classic Sonic 1, which, and I'm going to get ousted immediately for this. No, that's not C. I'd say it's B. Because the original Sonic is okay. I like the stages, I like the music. Sometimes it feels a little slow, especially in the latter half of the game. And there's a lot of weirdness with it. Because there's the spike bug, which, yeah, that was an accident. But at the same rate, supposedly, when they were first designing this game, there was going to be a progression, where it was like, okay, you start in Green Hill, and then things slowly get more robotic and artificial as you go along. And to that end, the second stage in the game was meant to be Labyrinth Zone. Fuck Labyrinth Zone. If you play any Sonic game, you will scream fuck Labyrinth Zone at the highest possible decibel value. No! No! Not to mention, the special stages in Sonic 1 are kinda trash. I already ragged on them when we went over Sonic 4. Colors. Console version. This one I actually have played. I would say it's a good game, but my god. The port for this thing, for the quote-unquote ultimate version of this game, got butchered. There's a cheat you abused in Sonic Rush special stages. Pause the game, put your stylus where you want. Wait, seriously? That was a thing? I didn't realize. Holy shit. Labyrinth was a good movie. Oh, we haven't gotten to Sonic Labyrinth yet. I've never watched the movie Labyrinth either. I need more pop culture. Right, Sonic Colors, console. Oh, crap. Shenron! Hello, Shenron. Hope you're doing well. Sonic Colors, console, I've played. I would say it's good. The stages are fairly short, unfortunately. The boss fights are also fairly forgettable. I would say it's a good game. But the quote-unquote Ultimate Edition re-release by Blind Squirrel is single-handedly the worst port of a game I have ever seen. I cannot recommend it, and it single-handedly brings down its score for me. Sonic CD! Okay, so there's actually quite a lot to talk about on this one. Sega needed a Sonic game to help sell the Sega CD add-on, which essentially takes your Genesis and, well, lets it read discs. It's not a bad game, but it's also a very divisive game. Need to watch Labyrinth, it's like a never-ending story about David Bowie! Alright then, I'll add it to the list. I need to watch more movies, period. Sonic CD's big shtick and gimmick was time manipulation. Essentially, you would be going through stages, and you would have a few different ways of getting to a past or a future version of the stage that you're playing, via finding signposts and maintaining your speed for a designated amount of time to the point that you would warp. But there were multiple ways that you could get the good ending for this game, and I love that. Like, you could get the time stones by collecting 50 rings and clearing the stage, which would get you to this very trippy area where you had to destroy a bunch of UFOs for the time stone. But alternatively, you could go about the stages, go into the past version of each and every stage, and find the robot generators and destroy them, and if you destroyed all 14, then that effectively got you the good ending too. So it was a nice mix. You could either do a bunch of stage exploration, or you could play it classic style, and that was really fun. The boss fights are poor, because they're all boss fights that take like 3 to 4 hits apiece. They have fairly simple patterns, cool gimmicks, but simple patterns, fairly forgettable boss fights. If you're going to play this game, tune into the Japanese soundtrack over the English soundtrack because it's just across the board better. There are vocals, there's better tracks, period, and the game over music laughs at you. I still recognize that it's a fairly janky game to play, and the Super Peel Out is essentially a worse version of the Spin Dash. I would still say it's an okay game, but it's up to you. Japanese Sonic CD soundtrack is better than another version. Exactly! Exactly. And, I have nightmare stories on this one. Sonic Advance 2. I would argue Sonic Advance 2 is the worst of the 3 Sonic games in terms of how you get your final boss and unlockables, period. See, with Sonic Advance 3, it was, oh hey, every world has like 9 different Chow to find all those Chow, then you can recomplete the stages to obtain special stage keys, then you can spend those special stage keys for chances at the special stage. Sonic Advance 2 is trash for how you get special stages. You need to find 7 emblems within any of the stages, get to the end of the stage without losing a life, and mind you, some of these tokens are hidden behind one-way paths, so you effectively needed to have the perfect run through the level just for a chance at the special stage. And the special stage is pants because it's like Sonic CDs, only you're being stalked by a robot which robs you of your rings, and you need to get a certain amount of rings before you run out of time. This by itself wouldn't be bad. Actually, this by itself is bad, but on top of all that, if you want your extra boss at the end, for the quote-unquote good ending and to 100% the game, you need to get all the special stage tokens as Sonic, which means you have no mobility options. They are a pain to get. And on top of all that, you unlock things like the Chow Garden, the sound test, etc., by getting all the emeralds with all the characters. Every character, and there are 5 in this game, has a separate emerald count, but only getting all the emeralds with Sonic gets you the Extra Zone boss. And the Extra Zone boss isn't even all that good. No lie, when we first had this, my sister and I, we never got to see the Extra Zone boss until maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, when I decided, hey, you know what? I'm just going to sit down and grind this game. Fucking disappointment. I don't like this game. Now you're glad Sonic Advance 2 is the only one you didn't get. Here's the thing, like, Sonic Advance 2 has great stages. They're terrible if you're trying to get all the emeralds. It also has great bosses, but everything else sucks. It's way too much effort for way too little reward. Sonic 2 Master System. I actually have to go over this one. There are 2 versions of Sonic 2 Master System. There's the Master System version and the Game Gear version. I can't say this enough. Do not play the Game Gear version! All I need to do is say the 2 most dreaded words out of all video gaming to have you scream and run for the hills and never touch this game. Screen crunch. And it hits this game as bad as the first area. In both games, the very first boss fight that you end up fighting is like this centipede thing. It's a dodging boss, essentially. Like, Eggy tosses a bunch of bombs down at the centipede. You're not supposed to get hit by the bombs. Let them hit the centipede, then let Eggy run down his own centipede, essentially. Classic Looney Tunes style thing. In the Game Gear version, it's impossible because the screen crunch makes it so that the slope that you're on is constantly pushing you down toward the boss itself, making it absolutely impossible to dodge the bombs that are coming down at you. In the Master System version, it's piss easy. Screen crunch absolutely ruins this game and brings it down not 1, but 2 tier levels. If we're talking about the Master System version, it's a C game. Do not play the Game Gear version no matter what you do. I guess to buffer it out, it goes D. Do not. Just do not. So passionate about Sonic games. Well, they were my childhood, okay? Leave me alone. Sonic Unleashed. I'll come back to this one because there are 2 versions of Sonic Unleashed. There's the Wii version, which is okay, and then there's the re-release version, which is kind of pants. We don't talk about Sonic Forces. We don't talk about Sonic Forces. We don't talk about Bruno. We don't talk about Bruno. We don't talk about Sonic Forces is trash. That's it. I don't need to explain myself. Sonic Heroes! The team dynamic of this game is interesting, but you effectively have to clear the game 4 times in order to get your Extra Zone boss. Ooh, broken Raccy. We don't talk about Bruno. Sonic Heroes. Not a bad game. The momentum feels nice, the stages are interesting, they're fun to play. I like the boss fights where you fight against the other teams. It's an interesting mechanic. It's actually pretty fun, pretty broken, too. Like, to the point that if you know what you're doing, and if you're super lucky, you could clear the rival team boss fight in 5 seconds. Because what you're meant to do in those boss fights is knock the opposing team out of the arena. And with the Flight character, it's possible to use their attack action, which is Thundershoot, and push them all out of the arena in a few swings, if you're lucky. But yeah, Sonic Heroes. Boss fights are really fun, stages are really fun, but you effectively need to play the game 4 times through just to get your final story in that, and it's just a couple boss fights. Essentially, Team Sonic is the base way to play the game. Team Amy is the easy mode, the tutorial boss fight, is the tutorial, essentially. Team Dark has longer stages and they're more grueling, and it's the quote-unquote hard mode, but it's not as fun. And we don't talk about Team Chaotix because that's a mission-based structure, and some of those missions, especially in the middle half of the game, suck. Because it's either stealth section, or disabling a bunch of torches, or finding a bunch of hidden crabs at the very beginning of the game. This game is also a pain in the ass to 100%, because every single stage in the game needs to be cleared twice. Once for its baseline A rank, and once again for its harder mission. There are 14 stages in this game. Do the math. You will be sick of this game by the time you're halfway through of it. Oh, and on top of all that, the special stages are also half-pipes like Sonic 2, only they're jankier. It's not... Like, I go back and forth on this game. It's okay. The multiplayer is really good, but there are a lot of bugs and glitches and inconsistencies and terrible schlock. C. Oh, 9, excuse me. I'll redact that then. 9 stages, 4 teams. You need to clear each stage twice. 9 times 8, 72. 72. And by the way, you need to get all A ranks too, and that gets you the quote-unquote expert mode, which is just a marathon. Triple Trouble. A fairly short game on Game Gear. This one also has you duking it out with Fang the Sniper, Knack the Weasel for Chaos Emeralds. You are only 5 Chaos Emeralds. The stages are interesting. The boss fights are interesting. There are power-ups that you could get in stages for Sonic that let you, like, use rocket shoes or bounce around or use a jet sled. I like the Sunset Park series of levels because the music's really fun. The gimmick, which with the roller coasters, is interesting. Act 2 transitions seamlessly into Act 3 and is the prototype for seamless transition stages, almost. Like, essentially what happens is, like, you finish Act 2 by getting on this train, you hit the signpost, you get your score bonus and everything, the signpost crumbles away as it falls away, the train starts up, and you transition seamlessly into the boss fight, which is this constantly on-rails moving section where you're essentially going from the back of the train to the front for the boss fight. This machine, the theme of Team Dark, was the debut song of Julian Kay, who later did Waking Up. Ooh, interesting. I do like this machine. Trapped in this machine, don't know the only wager, as the Eggman watches, we all danced in fire, looking through the screen. Don't know the only wager, as the Eggman watches. I do like the song. Right, Sonic 2. Some people say that Sonic 2 is the best classic Sonic game. No, it's Sonic 3 and Knuckles. You're wrong. You can't convince me otherwise. Sonic 2 is okay. The stages are interesting. The boss fights are good. The special stages single-handedly bring down this game. Because the half-pipe sucks. You can't convince me otherwise. You won't convince me otherwise. And on top of all that, if you want Sonic 2 gameplay, just play Sonic 3. Not to mention Death Egg Robot and Death Egg Robot. I would be crucified to put this in D. I'll put it in C. Sonic Mania! A game I would actually recommend playing because it's actually really good. This is the best 2D Sonic game. You can't convince me otherwise. And better still, you can buy it. You can still buy it. You can enjoy it on any console you want. And the modding scene is actually pretty good. Like, there's actually a Twitch integration mod for Sonic, for this particular Sonic game, Sonic Mania. Created by a user by the name Codename Gamma, I believe her name was. It is remarkable. It is memey, it is fun, it is interesting, and it's a staple of the Sonic hacking content, of the Sonic hacking and fan game community. The communities. Is this Sonic 1? Is this Sonic 1 Master System? Oh, buddy! Buddy, I have some news for you! You're worse than Sonic Genesis! You're shorter, the emeralds are hidden within the stages themselves, much like Sonic 2 on Master System. You're still trash. And the Game Gear version is even worse because of screen crunch. That's it. We're done. Oh, fuck. Now I actually get to debate. Sonic Unleashed. Okay, so Sonic Unleashed is one of those games that divides itself. There are two versions of the game. There's the Wii version, and there's the Xbox PS3 version. The Wii version is shorter, has less gimmicks and mechanics. The Xbox / PS3 version makes the Werehog sections take longer, be less fun, but it also adds a few stages into the game, which are actually kind of fun. There's an expert mode stages, but honestly, it adds almost nothing in terms of substance to the game that's positive, compared to the Wii version. So I'm kind of torn on this one. Honestly, I would say the Wii version is the one you'd play. If you're just generally curious, go for it. But honestly, you're not missing much. Sonic Advance 1. Not a bad game. The boss fights are interesting. The stages are interesting. It's a bit on the slow side, much like Genesis Sonic 1. The final boss, the Extra Zone boss isn't unbearable to get. Essentially how you get special stages in this one is you gotta explore the stage to find a special stage spring. You need to have 50 rings when you jump onto it. It's this half-pipe, but you're falling instead of running, and it's more interesting as a result. Not to mention, the Extra Zone boss of this, you're on the fucking moon and fighting a robot, and that's really cool. This also introduced me to the Tiny Chow Garden. I would say it's a good game. Not A tier, but it's a good game. We need to fight the night. We have to fight the night. The will to fight the night. Sonic and the Black Knight. I will say it's a good game, but I'm disappointed in it. Better than Secret Rings in terms of the single player, worse in terms of the side modes. It's still a C rank. If you're going to be playing a Sonic Storybook game, I would say play Black Knight. But even still, I can't definitively recommend it, if that makes sense. Is Sonic & Knuckles at S rank? No, but it is high A rank for me. Like, Sonic 3 and Knuckles is the definitive way to play the game, not Sonic 3 alone, not Sonic & Knuckles alone. Lock the two on, but Sonic Mania trumps it. I'm sorry to say, for me, Sonic Mania trumps it. Just slightly. And hey, if I 100% had my way, Rush Adventure would be in the S tier. But you know what? No. It's still high A rank. That's all I have to say. Take your picture, take your screenshot, crucify me in the comments section, or just Discord. I don't care.